And the only way that I've been able to grow the firm, to grow my family, to grow my impact has been through delegating and like finding the right support staff underneath me to promote me to better roles.
So, you want to make an impact. You're thinking about starting a business, sharing your voice. How do women do it that handle motherhood, family, and still chase after those dreams? Well, listen each week as we dive into the stories of women who know. This is Call Me CEO. Welcome back, everyone, to Call Me CEO. This is your host, Camille Walker, and here we celebrate mothers building businesses and making big movement and change in this world. And today's guest is no exception to that. We have Vanessa Alonso, who is an immigration attorney and helps individuals, families, and entrepreneurs navigate the U.S. immigration system with clarity, compassion, and confidence. With a deep understanding of both the law and human stories behind it, she is committed to helping clients build opportunity, security, and future without fear. And when I was reached out from her team to have her on the show today, I thought, gosh, this is a topic that I feel so passionately about, especially with immigration laws and the climate of our nation right now, that I am not the expert, nor would I ever pretend to be, but I love giving the opportunity or the amplification of other people's voices. So Vanessa, thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm so thrilled that you are here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and for the opportunity.
Yeah, you're welcome. So please tell our audience here a little bit more about what attracted you to immigration law and where you live, and you're a mom. So just give us a rundown of about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when I went to law school, I went to Toledo, Ohio, and I'm originally from El Paso, Texas. So I went from living on the border of Texas and Mexico to far, far away in the Midwest in Ohio. And it was a huge culture shock for me. And while there, I became very lonely. It was the first time that I was homesick because, my surroundings were just so different. I had never lived in snow. I had never been a true minority up until that point. And I learned so much being in Ohio, like what it is to really navigate life as one of four Latino students in a whole campus, And when I got the opportunity to help a nonprofit in the summers, what they allowed me to do was visit migrant farm worker camps. And I didn't realize that Ohio has 150 migrant farm worker camps. I had no idea it was a farming state. I mean, I knew nothing about Ohio except that I was going to go to law school there. And well, when I got to the camps, it was like I was home again. I
Mm.
heard people speaking Spanish and making the food that my mom makes at home and listening to the music that we listen to back home. And so I was immediately connected to the population. And I was there to visit to make sure that they didn't have any labor violations or unfair housing situations. And I didn't find any of that, but what I did find were many questions about immigration status. So people in different stages of their process, receiving notices that were in English that they couldn't quite understand, and people with questions about eligibility, because most of the time the people that were working in picking the crops were undocumented. They didn't have legal status at the time. And so what I saw was, here are people that I relate to, my culture, my people, if you will, when I'm far, far away from home, and their biggest need is immigration. And so I started to help with their immigration questions, and I would bring those back to the nonprofit, and the nonprofit's like, well, we can take only so many immigration cases because our grant is more about the labor aspect and their labor rights. But I was able to work through the program and help people in limited circumstances with their immigration issues. And I fell in love and I didn't want to serve any other community or practice any other type of law since then. And so my first job out of law school was working at an immigration law firm, and I've been doing that since. And I was, blessed enough to open my own practice in 2017.
Wow. And when you were in that situation of going into law school, you didn't know initially that immigration law was what you wanted to do. You just thought, I want to be an attorney. So, what led you to wanting to be an attorney initially?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm going to be really honest. When I was younger, I loved animals. I wanted to be a veterinarian. My dream was actually go to Texas A&M. They have a big cat program. I wanted to work with tigers. I wanted to help, breed endangered species. And I had all these dreams that were like around science and animals. And when I got to high school, my first, you know, important class was integrated physics and chemistry, and I got a freaking D in that class. And I had never failed a class before, and I was like so shocked. I was even in like a science and math magnet program, and so I was a freshman, but I was like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to become a vet if I am not good at science. And so it kind of, it was a damper on my dreams at the moment, but I was really involved in school. I loved public speaking. I loved helping people. I was volunteering. So I started to think about what I was going to do, and it wasn't until I got to college, and to be honest, like one of my close college friends at the time, her dream was to be a lawyer. Like Legally Blonde had came out, and she wanted to be exactly like Elle Woods, and she watched the movie so many times, and she was like, God, I can't wait to go to law school. Like, you should consider law school. You speak well, and you love writing, and I think it's like something you should consider. And so she actually put the idea in my brain, to be honest, because I had other ideas of what I wanted to do, but I was really loving, I think I did my bachelor's in like marketing and PR. And so I loved helping people. I loved storytelling. And so I said, you know what? I think law school would be the way for me to help people in a way that is impactful, and also to me, it's like a prestigious career where maybe I can make good money. I mean, to be honest, I was raised by a teenage mom, and there were a lot of times where we didn't have things that we wanted, and so growing up in that way and being a very humble person, I also wanted to have a career that I can build something of my own, and then maybe even like help my mom in the process. That was my big
Mm.
thinking at the time. So law just seemed to be the way that I can help others and make a good living and do something, important.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that you were able to connect. And isn't it interesting? The Legally Blonde, they're insurgents of people, women signing up for to become attorneys. What I
Yeah.
need to find that stat because I know that it's huge. I actually saw Reese Witherspoon. She was interviewed. I was in the front row. She was right there. And she was talking about that specifically, like what an impact that movie had for women professionally in getting a law degree and having
Yeah,
impact because people in impact with law degrees are helping to make change for our country, which I think
absolutely.
the ripple effect of that movie was just, it still continues, which is so cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great movie. Thank God for my friend who loved it so much. Like, I'll just be honest, it wasn't on my radar
Hmm.
at the time, and the ripple effect hit her and then hit me, and then now here I am. So I'm grateful for that, and for Reese for many reasons. I love her as an entrepreneur, and all the wonderful things she does, and all her creativity, and how she really just takes something that she's passionate about and just doubles down until she's a billionaire. I think that's
Yeah.
that's really incredible, and
Oh,
I'm
she's
really,
amazing. We
yeah.
could go that could be a whole show
Exactly.
studying her. She's
That's a
amazing.
whole show. Yeah, she's a
Yeah.
great study. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about opening your own business because it's one thing to decide you want to be an attorney. You find this calling that you want to work with your people and help with immigration, labor law. I mean, so many things to help with there. What was it that made you think, okay, this is great, but now I want to start my own?
Well, when I started in firms, first of all, it was my first real job. I had
Hmm.
like, jobs in high school and so forth, or maybe college. I don't even think I worked. Okay, let me take that back. In high school, I used to do choreography for quinceañeras. That was my
Hmm.
side hustle. And then
Cool.
in college, I worked at a pet store because there I am, wanting time with animals. That's always been my thing. But when I got to my first law firm job, I was brand new. I was green. I didn't know anything about how to practice law because you go to law school to learn how to read the law and how to apply facts and how to analyze, but you don't actually learn how to be a lawyer. Like
Hmm.
unfortunately, that has to come with experience working. And my first firm, everything that they said, I just took it as like okay, that's how things are. So everything that I learned, like I never questioned how things are done or why or how. I just kind of followed orders because it's like I have a job, you pay me, and then I do what you tell me to do. And I often found clients very distressed, very upset by what had been happening in their process. They never felt supported or that they were receiving the proper communication to really understand what was going on in their cases. And the fact that they're undocumented means
Mm.
that they're really unlikely to complain or to seek a second opinion or to do anything
Or even know the
because
questions to ask, right?
correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like they have an inclination that something's not right because it's taking too long and I'm not hearing from you and I'm paying you money and I'm confused. That was like the kind of the sense that I would receive from clients, and it was consistent because I was the attorney that got to meet with all of the existing clients that were really upset. I got to handle the escalations. And
Oh,
so
great. Yeah.
yeah, and so I was like, wow, like how is it that we have a service being paid for? We have staff that are working, and then there's like this disconnect. So I started to, I guess for lack of better words, imagine like how I would do things. Like, what would I do differently? How could I make sure that my client walks away from this meeting feeling secure and safe and educated and prepared? Because I did have that ability with the client. Like after the meeting, they're like, "Oh my God, thank God my appointment was with you. I feel so much better. You explained things to me in a way that I can understand, and I know going forward things are going to be much better." And I really loved that feeling. I love that ability to make someone feel reassured, for someone to come in terrified, anxious, and then leave, and maybe and unsatisfied, and then leave, 180, completely different, and have a different outlook on the service that they paid for and the system at whole. And so I kind of got addicted to that, and that was always like my thing. Like I wanted people to love the service that they're receiving, and that is what propelled me to always come back to that conversation of I want to open my own practice. I want to open my own practice. Like probably the first year I was an attorney, I had also met my husband at the time, and he like got me a PO box. He made me business cards through Vistaprint, and,
Oh,
and said like, here are your business cards. Here's your PO box. Like, do it. Like, go start your own practice. Like, I'll help you. Just do it. And I was like, no, like I'm not ready. I don't know enough, and there's still so much for me to learn. So that conversation continued to come up every year or two where he was just like telling me, you really got to do this. Like, I believe in you. I think you can do it. And it took me 7 years. Like, I held back for 7 years. I worked for an entire different law firm for many years. And with the same, always knowing that there's a gap here in service that I could fill and that would be honored to fill because I loved providing that service and that reassurance in that way.
hmm.
And so finally in 2017, I had just had my son. I have a daughter. We have three children, but my youngest is a boy, and he's 11 now. So at the time, he was still a baby, and so I was like, you know what? It's time. I'm ready to go. I'm gonna do it. And so I started my practice, and I was solo for some time. And my husband ended up getting licensed as an attorney that same year that I opened the firm. So then we created a partnership between the both of us, and that's how Alonso and Alonso Attorneys at Law came to be.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Now, I have got to say, couples that run businesses together and families, that takes a really special talent. Tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about starting that business, maybe what you learned the hard way, and then how did you incorporate roles of like co-owners,
Yeah.
co-CEOs, and parents? Because
Yeah.
parenting too, it's not just the relationship, it's now the parenting.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of questions. So we'll just start with the first one. Tell me about lessons you learned in that first year.
Well, the first year is always the hardest. I was lucky enough to leave the firm I was working at, and then clients followed me, and I was not expecting that. So it was really great that I was already practicing, and I had a reputation, if you will, in the business that I'm also starting. So I think that was
That's
really
huge.
key because I didn't start truly from zero.
Hmm.
I started um, with a little more ahead because I had clients that said, if you start your own practice, I'm going with you. And in the state of Texas, if you are representing someone, like if my name's on the case, I legally have to inform you if I'm leaving the firm. So like my letter said, hey, I'm leaving. I'm so sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Someone else will be handling your case. And then clients were showing up like, hey, where are you going? Like, I need your number. What's going on? You know, and it's actually permissible for that client to want to end representation and follow me. So that was great, you know, and I wasn't even expecting that, to be honest. So first of all, like some of the lessons that I learned that very first year were like for me to promote myself in a business, I had to promote myself in my home. There was no way that I was going to be able to run this firm as a one-man show at the beginning because I am the lawyer, I am, you know, doing the accounting, I am the receptionist, I am the paralegal, I'm the marketing person. Like you're everything when you first start a business and you don't have a team. And I think most of us do start out that way.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't come home and then also run a household. Like it was just impossible. So what I immediately did with my husband's, you know, support was we're going to get a nanny. We're going to have somebody, you know, clean the house consistently because if I have time that I can invest in the business, I'm going to get a better return on investment on those hours spent fulfilling all the roles in the firm as opposed to coming home and, you know, making sure kids are getting bathed and fed and homework's done. What I wanted to do was like end at the firm, come home and have quality time with my kids. Like we're reading together, we're snuggling, we're watching a show. And I was able to do that early on because I knew that all of my time needed to be dedicated to the firm, as much extra time as possible. So I started to evaluate like what is not that important, you know, like, you know, making sure my kids do their homework is important, but it doesn't have to be me. I
Mm-hmm.
can I can subcontract those hours to somebody else who can really be present and their skill set, maybe they're tutors, they can really like they're really going to help them. So getting them the best assistance they need for parts of their life that I was no longer going to handle myself, that was really key for me that first year. And same thing in the firm. Just like we talked about virtual assistants, getting my first receptionist was key that she could answer the phone so I can actually speak to the clients that were in the office. And that's how we've built the firm, which is large at this point. We have 6 different offices. We have a huge team, like an extremely large team. And the only way that I've been able to grow the firm, to grow my family, to grow my impact has been through delegating and like finding the right support staff underneath me to promote me to better roles where I can like utilize my skill set the best way to help grow and scale the firm and scale the family at the same time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. 6 locations.
Yes.
Are they all in Texas?
5 are in Texas and 1 is in Phoenix, Arizona.
Wow, that's incredible.
Thank you.
How many attorneys are on like in all of those together?
Yeah.
Like how many
So
altogether?
altogether, we have about 20 or 22 attorneys between the attorneys. And then my husband and myself, of course, were the additional two.
Wow, that's incredible. So with growing that business and so many locations, how do you maintain quality time with your husband and also boundaries of staying in your lanes? Because that's even bigger than I
Yeah.
was even thinking. This is
I think that's
multiple
a whole other
locations.
podcast,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a few things. Like one, we're really comfortable that with the fact that the firm is really important. Like everyone in our family understands that the firm and the clients are our priority for us. Like our family is there too, our children just as much, but clients are like that third most important thing in our lives. So everyone's very comfortable with the fact that we talk about the business all the time.
Mhm.
Our children already understand, you know, what's at stake and why mommy and daddy work so much and why we do what we do and how the success of the firm allows us to have quality time and quality experiences with our children, how it's allowed us to build you know, hopefully generational wealth that they're going to be able to inherit in the future. And we just have a lot of conversations about, you know, this is important. This is great work. And as a family, we're choosing that this is how we do things. And between my husband and I, we have struggled in the past. I'm not going to lie with spilling over of the disagreements about how to run the business or what to do or what not to do or how we feel about certain initiatives versus others. At times, it would spill over to the marriage, and we had to really get clear as to what are those boundaries. So little things that we do is like, we don't talk about business after 8 p.m., so we
Mm.
have at least an hour before bedtime where we don't discuss anything. And no matter how pressing it is, we try to push it to the next day. We create what we call CEO, COO time because my husband is our chief operations officer. So we have like 3 slots a week where it's like an hour before lunch, and all of our assistants know like if Chris and Vanessa need to agree on something, if there's something that they're not aligned with or they both need to understand something together, that's what those time slots are for. So we just time block now, and it's really helped. And probably another really important thing that we do is like we've just really forced ourselves to compartmentalize. Like if he and I have a heated board meeting discussion amongst our other directors and we're not aligned, then we just say, you know what? Come home time. He's my husband. I love him. Affection remains. Like we really have to stop and say, I can disagree with him as my chief operations officer. I can disagree with him as a co-owner and co-founder, but my husband, his role as my husband, as our family's protector and provider remains sacred. And I respect that. And then he respects that of me as well. So it took a lot of practice, but eventually it just becomes natural to like 7 p.m. You're like, hi, how are you? How was your day? How did your meetings go?
Yeah.
Knowing damn well how some of those meetings went and how you felt about them. It's still, it's like how they say when you're feeling down, you force a smile because, your body learns like, hey, it's okay to feel good, or it'll release endorphins for you. I think that practice of every day just greeting him in a loving way, it just kind of sets the tone for, hey, it's family time. It's husband and wife time now.
Mm, that is really good advice. And if there's anyone who knows how to compartmentalize arguing, I think attorneys have a special skill set for that because
Yeah.
we joke about that. My son has very much characteristics of being able to debate and get really heated about something. And then 5 minutes later, he's like, so what's for lunch? And he's just like on to the next thing, which is a talent. I don't think everyone comes that way. So the
Yeah.
fact that you've been able to figure that out for the two of you is very impressive. Truly. I think that's amazing.
Yeah. And I think just getting comfortable with conflict, understanding that
That's what it
we're going to have a
is. It's being
conflict.
comfortable with conflict.
Mhm.
Yes. And that is a skill. It is a
Absolutely.
skill. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I would love to shift the conversation a little bit for the climate of what is happening right now. I feel like a lot of us are uncertain and confused and also wanting to support people of America. And
Yeah.
what does that mean right now? And the first question I would like to start with is what is the biggest myth that people have about immigration law? And then maybe from there, we can learn about more ways that we can help support each other.
Absolutely. The biggest myth about immigration law is that there's a way and people are just choosing not to participate. That's something I see often where why don't they just get legal? Why don't they just apply? Why didn't they just come in legally? The avenues to obtain legal status are very strict and very limited. And if you don't follow it from day one the proper way, it's not something you could just jump into, not something you could just elect. It's not as simple as just filling out some forms so that you can get a document that gives you permission to stay here. I wish it were, but
Yeah.
it is not that way. And if people understood that there's circumstances that don't permit you certain pathways, then I think there would be more understanding because there's a misconception that it's a choice to be undocumented in the United States.
Oh, I think you've hit the nail on the head where it's like, well, why don't they just become legal? Like, what's the
Yeah.
problem? So what would you say the biggest misconception is or what you wish people understood about that actual process? Because it is, I know bits, small bits about it. And my goodness, the tests alone that you have to take and be able to cross are
Yeah,
answers I don't know. So tell us a little bit more about what people think it is and what it actually is so
for
that they
sure.
have a better understanding.
So I believe most people think I'm here, I marry a citizen, and that's it. I am legal. I can stay here. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. Family membership is one pathway to get legal status in the United States. Being married to a US citizen does open the opportunity for you to be petitioned by that spouse, right? But then there are so many other rules as to who's eligible to take that path and who's not. So if somebody maybe came in without permission, like maybe they were brought as children, like many people that have DACA, they're called the dreamers, right? Were brought in as young children and didn't have a say in the matter, were brought to the United States without permission. And now the government says, okay, you married a citizen, great, you can do a petition, but for you to get your green card, you're going to have to actually go back to your home country of Mexico, do an interview over there. You need a waiver. It's going to take a lot of time. And often these people don't have ties to Mexico anymore. They've been in the United States since they were children. So think of an obstacle like that where, okay, for me to get legal, I'm going to have to leave the country, potentially be outside for a certain amount of time. I don't have ties over there. I have a job here already, or maybe I'm already in college. So the practical implications of what's required to truly legalize within even just the limited remedies that do exist or pathways that do exist, they're often very unconscionable or just impractical for people to comply with.
And from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it can take years. Is that
Absolutely.
right? That it can
Yes.
take years where all of your paperwork's in place and you've done everything the air quotes correct and right way,
Yeah,
and it can still take years. So, what
absolutely.
are some things that people can do that are in the country to protect their building their wealth or their business or their family in a way? I mean, especially right now in this climate, like what can they do?
Yeah, well, the first thing is to get a consultation with a licensed immigration attorney that practices primarily immigration. There are so many um, different types of there are so many different avenues within immigration and pathways. So you can come with an investor visa. You can be brought by an employer because you have special skills or a special degree. You can come in because you won what's called a diversity lottery visa, where we just give visas to people because they applied for the lottery and they were allowed to come in, which I think was recently canceled, but that's another method that people come in. There's people that come to the border to seek asylum because they're coming from countries where they fear for their life and they want protection, they want safety or economic opportunity. There are people that come because they cannot feed their children or their families in the countries that they reside in. And the US has historically been this like beacon of hope for
Mm-hmm.
people to come and have jobs and be able to feed their families and have a livable wage. So there are all of these different ways to legalize, and immigration attorneys often specialize in just a few of the methods because to really do everything requires a, a lot of skill sets, and it's kind of like what is it, like jack of all trades, master of none, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in immigration law, when I tell people, like, speak to an immigration lawyer that does the case types that you need. So if you're trying to obtain your legal status based on your marriage to your spouse, make sure that attorney does that kind of law. You don't need an employment-based attorney, immigration attorney to do your family-based case. So that's normally my first and most important piece of advice is consult with somebody that's an expert in their field and consult with more than one attorney because we all have our different methods and our different experiences. And as an attorney myself, what I've noticed is that attorneys won't be vulnerable enough to say, "Hey, Camille, like you're here to talk to me about getting visas for the employees in your business. But you know what? Like, I don't know that much about that. All I do, I help people that have been victims of crimes and victims of human trafficking. So I think you should go talk to somebody else. Oftentimes attorneys um, can give you the advice based on their experience, and it might not be the full spectrum of information available. So when I vet an attorney or any professional that's going to help me with something that's important in my life, I always get 3 consultations. So that's what I tell people. Like, don't speak to one immigration attorney, speak to 3 different ones. Go to the one that you feel is most aligned and has the most experience in the case type that is yours.
Yeah. That's really good advice. I mean, that's good life advice for any big
Absolutely.
decision, right?
Yes.
Would you say, and because we have so much misinformation and a lot of worry and the media, nothing that I see right now on television or through social media is really a positive right now when it comes to immigration situations and scenarios happening right now. What would you say with everything you're seeing? Is it a clear depiction of what's happening? Is there anything good happening, or is it worse than it looks like that we're actually seeing access to?
That's a really great question. From my seat, I've practiced immigration law under three different presidents at this point. And every presidency has created new opportunities or new challenges. This new administration, it's been challenge after challenge after challenge. And the worst part of it is that it's a degradation of due process, which might not alert or concern a US citizen. But when our government has the ability to strip due process rights from one population, they get that power broadly. And my concern is that even if most Americans are not that concerned about what happens to someone who is here undocumented, the method by which that is being executed does paint with a broad brush and can affect all of us here. So it's concerning. For example, a recent change that they're making is an appeal. Like if an immigration judge orders someone deported, we're given 30 days to file an appeal. So that's a special paper that we have to fill out, a filing fee that we have to attach, and then we have to make sure that it arrives within those 30 days. Like you have mail issues, bad weather, all kinds of things. So now they're changing it to say instead of 30 days, we're going to give 10 days, and so we start to see basically like a reduction of opportunities to participate in the system. We're
Mm.
seeing a lot of pressure on judges to order deportation and not give the same amount of opportunities for a case to be heard. And that is just what we see internally. And of course, these things are, publicized in the news and they are often explained as like we're really cracking down. Our enforcement is improving. But what's occurring is yes, those things they are this administration has been exceptionally successful in their goals to deport as many people as possible, but they're doing it in a way that is violating their rights. And that is what's concerning because these rights are written in the Constitution. These rights are written in the laws that provide them the benefits. So if I'm applying for a certain benefit, such as like a humanitarian visa, let's say, the law in humanitarian visas say someone that's seeking a visa because they've been a victim of a crime or victim of human trafficking should not be subjected to enforcement. So if you're a victim, Camille, and you come to me and I'm helping you, I should get the opportunity to finish the process, to apply and hear what immigration has to say about the case, get a decision without you being subjected to being deported.
Hmm.
So even though the law states that very clearly, we're seeing people get deported with pending humanitarian visa cases. And this is a huge problem because one thing is written in the law, and then what's happening in our cities is completely contrary to that. And our country was built on nobody being above the law. Like we all have to abide by the law. The government abides by the law. We have checks and balances. We have separation of powers, like all of these things that have kept us safe and democratic in nature are being violated. But because it's being violated against a group of people that maybe many are not that concerned about, or maybe people have negative feelings about that group of people, no one's really understanding like what's next because this is bigger than just being able to deport people. This is stripping of constitutional rights of a population that is protected under the Constitution.
Are you ready to reclaim your time and finally focus on the tasks that actually grow your business? Whether you're looking to hire a VA or thinking about becoming one, I've got the perfect solution for you. If you're overwhelmed with your business, I personally connect entrepreneurs with highly trained virtual assistants, graduates of my 60 Days to VA program, so you can confidently outsource and scale. Or if you're looking for a flexible, profitable business from home, my 60 Days to VA course gives you everything you need to have to become a successful assistant without the trial and error. Head to CamilleWalker.co to get started today. Whether you're hiring or launching your own business, I'm here to help you make it happen. You can also grab this link below and schedule a free discovery call with me to see if it's the right fit for you. Wow. There's so much to unpack there. And you described it so beautifully and also very
Thank you.
in a way that I understand what you're saying. And I also understand there's so much that you're not saying that you have to be
Yes,
careful about.
you
So
do.
I'm
You
like
have to be
trying to weed
careful.
through that a little bit. Tell me if someone is deported, because I personally do not know someone that has been deported, but so many people are.
Mhm.
What happens to that person when they are deported? What does that look like? Where do they go? What if
Yeah,
they have family and jobs and what's happening to them? Can you tell us
absolutely.
about that?
That's such a great question, and I think that's probably the best way to understand the implications of a deportation is like what happens to that person in their community, in their job, and in their family, right?
Yeah.
Well, what the Department of Homeland Security will do is they will obviously, detain someone, ensure that they, in fact, do not have current legal status, make sure that they get a travel document or permission from their home country to deport them. Because remember, you can't just fill a plane with people and show up in Venezuela and let them out. You have to have permission from the country to do so. So that's often why people are detained before being deported is because you have to obtain that travel permission
Mm.
to return the person to their home
And
country.
what
Now,
kind of a timeline is that typically?
yeah, I mean, this could be days to weeks at some time and some points. And if there's not an agreement with the country, if the U.S. is not, doing well with that country, and then the U.S. has to look for other countries that they can deport people to. That's why you see in the news like people being deported to Africa or people being deported to El Salvador because El Salvador has agreed to take people from other countries.
Hmm.
That was a block in the past when the U.S. didn't have a relationship with a country. Some people would stay detained for a very long time, and we would have to file special lawsuits to get them released because the government would say, "I'm trying to deport them. I'm just waiting for the travel document." But yeah, but it's been 6 months. Like, let them go. This is
Yeah.
unfair, and
So are you saying that El Salvador would take someone to their country, even though that's not their country of origin?
they would take. They have granted permission or have accepted people that should be deported to other countries if they haven't been if the US is not able to deport them to their home country. So this is
Wow.
something very new. Um, uh, for as long as I've been practicing, the US didn't have agreements to be able to deport people from certain countries to other countries. So this is something unique and creative under this administration, that they've reached agreements to detain people in other countries, and instead of detaining them in the US or deport them to other countries that they are not from. So I guess going back to
Wow.
your question, when
Yeah, I haven't
when
heard
someone
that. So that's new to me. Okay. Okay, so
when
they're held until they get the paperwork and
correct.
then
Yes, and then once the travel document is secured, then they'll be put on a plane or on a bus, like depending on how close they are to their home country. Obviously, if you're detained in Texas and you are from Mexico, like you could be deported by bus, or by plane. And so you get put on a plane in handcuffs, and you get escorted back to your home country. They're not going to take you to your city of residence or where you have family. They're not going to disclose to you where you're being deported to, and you can be kind of just left wherever the government decides to leave you. And so often what happens is like you're dropped off and you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't I don't know where I'm at. And then the person just kind of has to figure it out from there, to
wow.
try to get to family members that they know from their home country and get in communication so that they can, start picking up the pieces of their life. And what's left here is our children, oftentimes US citizen children that are highly dependent on that person, because we're seeing many breadwinners being deported, unfortunately, spouses being left behind, and then employers being left behind who have been, employing this person for a long time, businesses that this person might have that are now needing to be taken over by family members and so forth. And it really truly is like just like from one day to the next, you're gone. You're not in your home. You're not in your community. You're not with your family any longer.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so that's terrible. And how, and I am asking the most bare minimum questions because
Okay,
truly that's where I'm coming from. How do they identify the people that they want to go get?
that's a great
And do
question.
you know that they're coming? Like what's the process of that as well?
Well, at this point, everybody is a priority. In the past, under other administrations, there was a list of who's a priority. Like, who do we want to focus our efforts on? Like, who are the people that we want to get out of this country? It used to focus on criminals. It used to focus on people that were a danger to our country because of maybe like their political views or maybe threats that they've made. So
Which makes sense that would be
correct.
yeah, a
So
priority.
it would
Okay.
make sense that you would use your force, and your the money to go after the people that are causing the most risk or problems for people in this country, right? We don't
Right.
want bad people here. Nobody does. I think all
Yeah.
American citizens can agree. Like, we do not want people that, one, are going to cause us harm, and two, don't have permission to be here. Like, absolutely every one of us can agree on that. And so our enforcement priorities used to focus on higher level people that were a danger, to be honest. And now that priority list does not exist. It's everybody that is here without legal status is a priority, which changes drastically. That means that you're going from, task force that are trying to find sexual predators and dangerous people to like anybody that you find on the street or however you find them, there you got to get them out. And that's been like the drastic shift that we're seeing. Like, somebody that's maybe a landscaper, he's just driving to work, and because he has some lawnmowers in the back of his truck, um, an officer's going to stop him. A nice officer's going to detain him, pull him over, and say like, hey, you got some lawnmowers back there, so do you have legal status? And when they don't, then they're processed.
Mm.
And at that point, they're detained and they're processed for deportation. So attorneys at that point can do what they can to try to apply for a bond, or try to apply that, for a stay of removal if that person has a prior order of removal. So I would say that there are many people in this country that already have an order of deportation. That means that they already went to a judge and the judge said you're going to be deported, or they presented a case and they weren't successful, and they were put in the process to see a judge, and maybe they didn't show up to court and they have an order of removal. There's also people that were caught coming unlawfully to this country, or they were caught, with like trying to come in with a visa, but the officer suspected, hey, maybe you're trying to work here, and they were given orders of removal. So we have many people with these administrative orders of removal that already says like this person should be removed from this country. They don't have any more rights, like they're out. So there are many people with those orders, and I would say that what I've seen is um ICE go after people that already have orders. That's been their priority, because that's easy for them. That they don't have to present them before a judge. They already have a document with their picture. They probably already have a file. They probably already know how to locate these people. So we've seen ICE come primarily for peoples with order of deportation, but because they do have quotas to meet for deportation, it's like, Camille, I'm coming for you because I know you have an order, but who else is in your house? I'm going to talk to your
Mm.
sister. I'm going to talk to your kids. I'm going to talk to your husband. If I can make a 3 for 1 here, I'm going for it. So we've just seen like kind of like this sweeping behavior of like just trying to pull anyone and everyone. And so now what you're seeing are people deported, because they had orders of removal, people deported because they did have criminal history, and then people deported who have not had criminal history, who have ties to this community, who might have pending cases that have not been resolved, and they are also being deported. So it's pretty much anyone that ICE encounters, they are doing the most that they can to execute as many removal orders as they can. And I will say it's not every single officer because we've been successful presenting to officers, hey, this client of ours has a pending case. We're so close. Please just give us an extension of time. Don't detain them, or you know what, put an ankle monitor on them. We just really want the opportunity to finish something we started so long ago,
Oh,
years
yeah.
ago, that we haven't received a decision on because the processing times are so lengthy and USCIS is so understaffed. So I'm not going to say that 100% every single officer is out for blood to get everyone that they can. That's not been our experience, but it is deportation and detention of people that are not a risk to the country, that are laborers. I mean, you see in the news people, ICE officers going to see roofers and try to bring someone off the roof that they're working on, in the middle of replacing shingles to like process them. And that's just something we've never seen before because in the past, all of our enforcement was was done with priority to get the people that really shouldn't be in this country.
Wow. Oh, that's heavy. How do you, with dealing with so much right now and where this has become such an escalated emotional scenario every day, how
Yeah.
do you handle that as a business owner, as a mom? I mean, I'd love for you to share that story that you shared with me about career day and
Yeah.
how has that, I mean, that's yeah, share that story and tell me how you're handling it all because you are doing heroic work and
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
protecting your peace. Like tell me
Yeah.
how are you handling it all?
Well, I would say that I've been lucky enough to learn tools along the way because practicing immigration law has been difficult for many years. And under the first Trump administration, when family separation happened for the first time, I almost quit practicing.
Mm,
And it was right when I started my practice, and then when I started seeing having to visit families in detention centers together, like interviewing a mom who's like holding a baby that has a fever, and
oh my gosh.
like she's just like trying to tell me her story so I can write up her asylum claim, but like everything that she's going through in the moment while being detained, while being new to this country and like not knowing much of anything and except like I'm scared and please do whatever you can to help me because I don't want to be detained. I needed care for my baby. I want to get to my family who's here. It was just so unique. So I had practiced for several years before family separation began, and family separation almost broke me. So I had to learn quickly. Okay, like I learned about secondary trauma. I learned about tools to help combat that. I obtained tools for our team to make sure that maybe I'm no longer doing the client interviews anymore or visiting the detention centers, but they are. And so I think I got some practice under the first administration and learned some really important tips on how I can keep my peace because I'm in charge of this firm and every single client has entrusted their life to me. So with that responsibility, I keep myself very protected. I don't utilize social media. So I have social media pages that I my assistant will post things for me, and but I cannot scroll because once I start to see the ICE arrest and once I start to see the protests, like my brain becomes extremely distracted and I start to feel like I'm not doing enough. Like I need, what else can be done? Like this is huge. Like and so I think just having like a good realization moment with myself and just saying, okay, I picked my role in this. Like every single person has a different role in let's say a moment like this, like if once we feel that something needs to be done, like we all can take a role. Like some of us are support other people in the role, some of us protest, some of us provide a service, some of us um you know there's just all these different roles. I have like a really great document that says like all the different roles in a resistance, to use the term. And so just realize like what is my role here? My role is to be the best CEO that I can, to support my team that is directly supporting our clients and our community. And so like I hold that responsibility very dearly. I realize like I read somewhere that the CEO's nervous system is the firm's nervous system or the company's nervous system. So if I'm showing up scared, if I'm not practicing self-care, if I'm experiencing burnout, then that's going to have a trickle effect into my entire organization. And who's going to suffer at the end of the day are going to be my clients. And I started this whole thing for them to begin with. So the last thing I can do is permit myself to fall apart and then not serve them. So I would say, like, I guess compartmentalization again, understanding what my role is, being very clear about that, and just relentlessly protecting my peace and my calm so I can just show up every day and say, okay, what's next? What else did they hit us with? What new changes are coming? How do we educate our clients? How do we elevate our services? How do we meet our clients with where they are today and how they're feeling minute to minute? Because that is like the best thing that I can do myself for a community that I care the most about.
Yeah. Ooh, that is so powerful. And I think that that rule applies to us as women, as mothers, as
Absolutely.
entrepreneurs, where our energy reflects so much and trickles down in so many ripples that we don't even it's a lot of pressure sometimes
Absolutely. It's a
being
lot
that
of
person
pressure.
where you're like, wait, this is on me, but to safeguard yourself and have safe care or self-care practices is huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is
Absolutely.
there
And
one that you can point to? I know you talked about avoiding social media, but in
yeah.
terms of like protecting your energy and your space and really recentering yourself, aside from social media and keeping safeguards around that, is there one that you can tell us about that's really helped you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as someone who's addicted to their phone and doesn't have social media, I have apps like an affirmations app that, I'll just scroll affirmations and just kind of read through them and say like, yeah, like I am worthy of a best case scenario. I am worthy of everything working out in my favor, just kind of reinforcing those beliefs about myself and becoming like really pushing myself to stay positive and
Mm,
stay present has been through applications on my phone. I have another application on my phone called, I think it's called My Feelings. It's like a Yale study where the application is free and you just kind of keep track of your feelings twice a day. Like, how are you feeling today? Is it anxious? Is it calm? Is it surprised? Is it excited? I've learned that being in tune with your emotions, and being able to describe them appropriately is normally the best way to say, okay, this is just an emotion. This is just temporary. It's okay to be this way. Let me give
mhm.
myself permission and then let me go about my day. So I would say like technology has been great. Also, like I know it's like so cliche, right? But I also use like AI for therapy. Like, hey, I'm having this really tough time right now. This is what I'm feeling. This is what is going through my mind, and I can get like in the minute like responses that say, "Hey, you're doing the best that you can," and this is what you need to focus on. And these are like three things you can do right now to get yourself out of this negative fact pattern thinking that you're experiencing. And so I would say that on top of protecting myself, using apps to support myself, like just the way I use it to support the firm, I use it to support myself and my mental health. Also, just family time. So I've this year I said after 6 p.m. I'm done. I'm not working. Anything that's not done at 6 is going to carry over to the next day, or it's going to get delegated. Like, it's just not happening. So now in the evenings I do puzzles with my children, or we watch shows together, or I make popcorn and we like talk about our days. And like the kids really look forward to it. Sometimes they're like right at my door like at 5:59, like, hey mom, what are you doing, what are we
Keeping
gonna
you
do today?
accountable.
Yeah, they keep
Yeah.
me accountable. They're they're very good about that. And that's really when I do my feelings app in the evening and I'm like, I'm feeling calm, I'm feeling hopeful, I'm feeling positive. It's like, where are you and who are you with? And it's always like at home with my family, at home with my
Mm.
family, at home with my family. So I think just finding what your joy is and what gives you the most happiness and being very relentless about making sure that's time blocked into your life is the best way to have resiliency for your business, for your family, for yourself, for your marriage. Like, you really have to deal yourself into your life and make yourself a priority.
Yes. Oh, I love everything you just said. One of my favorite shortcuts of they say if you can name it, you can tame it when it
There
applies
you
to your
go.
emotion. Yes. So I love that because I try to teach my kids that of, the emotion code of what emotions did you feel today? When did you feel them? It's okay that you
Yeah.
felt that way and let's talk about it. And it's everything is temporary, but understanding it and how it moves through your body is
Yeah,
such an important skill. So awesome,
absolutely.
awesome.
And
I
something as
have,
I think as a sorry, as a woman, just real quick, I want to say that I used to be very taken away by my emotions, and
mm,
I didn't realize that for many years. It was like if I'm feeling sad, like I'm gonna be feeling sad for a long time, or if I'm really touched by a client and I feel like God, I'm just replaying her story in my mind over and over again. Like I started to notice that it was not serving me to just allow myself to kind of indulge in those emotions long term. And so like you said, once you name it, you can tame it. And I think just realizing that emotions are temporary. They're not an indication of reality. It's just how you're responding in the moment. And like once you can give it that place in your life, then you can tame it appropriately.
yeah. Yeah, I love it. I actually have a podcast called 5 Minute Meditations for Kids, another podcast, and it's to teach kids the foundation of their emotions and meditation and those mantras and how do I move past this or through it, actually talking about it
Yeah.
and feeling it. So I'm right in line with you. That's amazing. Well, just to wrap this up, I've enjoyed our conversation so much. I think many people listening, like me, may be thinking, what can I do? What is the
Yeah.
thing that I can do moving forward? How can I support what I want to see happening in America right now, which is to love and to support and help people in through this event? What would you say to someone like me or to the people who are listening?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you are scrolling social media or you see things happening in the news that make you feel uncomfortable or unhappy, make you feel angry, the best thing you can do is find your place, how you can get involved. If you have someone undocumented close to you, maybe you can serve as a mentor or as an assistant to that person in a way that, maybe they have a lawyer and they have questions and they're not certain. We've seen some clients need other services that are not just like legal related. Maybe they're having housing insecurity and they need to make a plan on what to do if they get deported. American citizens that speak English know how to navigate systems very well, and oftentimes someone that's undocumented that doesn't speak English very clearly is not going to know all of the resources available to them. So I would just say, if you know somebody and you care about them, reach out to them, see how you can be of service. Maybe you can be like a mentor. Maybe you can sit in with their meetings with their attorney so you can help them explain. Maybe they need other services and routes to those other services, or maybe they just need to feel supported. People right now, undocumented, feel very isolated. They feel targeted. They feel terrified. And so, as a neighbor, as a coworker, as a family member, I think just reaching out and saying like, "Hi, like I'm sorry that things are crazy right now, and what can I do to support you? How can I show up for you?" So I think just bridging that gap between us as people, understanding that there are many American families with mixed status family members, and just seeing like if we can just see each other as family members, if we could just see each other as neighbors, or as like that child is my son's classmate, I think then all of these lines and divisions kind of melt away, and it's just like, how can I support you? How can I be here for you in a time that's difficult for you? Because if I were having a difficult time, I would want to be supported by my community as well. So that's probably the best thing that we can do, is just care and show up in the ways that we know how, as humans, as people who love and people who care.
I love that. And to ask questions. I think what,
Ask
like you were
questions.
saying, just keeping it an open conversation and not hiding behind the fear of what do I say?
Absolutely. And, I think large scale, I mean, the basics are is that as American citizens, if we don't like what we see, we have to participate in our
Hmm.
government, right?
Yep.
Because our government, they work for us. And if they're not representing how we want our country to run, it's like me, I'm a CEO of a company, and although I am the founder and the owner, that's a little different. But companies fire CEOs all the time. Like if that person that's leading us, whether it's on a state level, on a city level, on a national level, if they're not representing our interests, then we need to speak up. We need to participate. We cannot be passive in things that make us this upset. We have to be responsible. We have to participate. We have to educate ourselves. We have to have intelligent conversations. And when we don't know something, be willing to learn, be willing
Hmm.
to listen, be willing to work together, because I do remember a country where we were much more united. And I think although the undocumented community is like, at the center of my heart and my soul and my life, I'm also on top of everything that's happening to them, I am experiencing so much hate and division. Even the other day, I was recording in front of the immigration office. I was recording a video explaining to clients like what's occurring, and like I keep my clients very educated as to what's happening. And somebody literally drove behind me in a Honda Civic, and I'm dressed like my CEO self. I'm always in a suit. Hair and makeup's always done. I have like professional camera crew in front of me, and this like teenager rolled down the window and yelled, "ICE is coming for all of you." And he sped off. And I've never experienced something like that in my entire life. And I've lived in other states and other parts of the country. And I was just like, whoa, like it was like a whole like 360 moment of if me dressed like this, doing an interview, looking like maybe I'm a newscaster or something, can be subject to that much hate and racism in like a split second. I can't imagine like what's going on large scale.
Yeah.
So I think it's just about like, how can we come back together on this? Like how I don't think any of us love how things are in this moment and how things feel. So how can we just have more conversations on what we can do together?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming and having this conversation with me. I learned so much. I hope
Great.
others listening feel the same way. Please tell us where we can go to support you and learn about
Yeah.
your services if anyone listening needs that.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is alonzoandalonzolaw.com. You guys can come to my website. Our Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. You can always find us. I believe on YouTube we are Arreglando con los Alonso, which I know it's in Spanish, but I think if you just look up Alonzo and Alonso, you can find us, our website, and all of our platforms. We've done like a great docu-series about clients that we were privileged enough to take back home after years of not seeing their parents, and we documented and put that on YouTube, so for anyone that's interested. And we have a nonprofit also called alonzocares.org, and that's our website. And so we created the nonprofit to try to support our clients in ways that the firm was not able to. So you can always find us on social media, and my Instagram is Abogada Alonso too. So yeah, you can
Okay.
find me
Well,
on the
we'll make sure to have the links
internet.
below. And thank you,
Okay,
Vanessa, so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate
absolutely.
it.
No, thank you so much.
Hey, CEOs, thank you so much for spending your time with me. If you found this episode inspiring or helpful, please let me know in a comment and a 5-star review. You could have the chance of being a featured review on an upcoming episode. Continue the conversation on Instagram at Call Me CEO Podcast. And remember, you are the boss.